What's cracking, guys? Razer Vasquez back with another video, with a new series actually. I'm going to call this Tech Tuesday, so this is basically going to be a tech series on a Tuesday. So I basically wanted to add technology into my channel. Even my intro said tech and gaming, and for about a month or two I've only had gaming. So this is really my first push into the tech realm. So I'm going to keep it a little bit more budget oriented. So this time we're going to talk about a graphics card. Even though in Tech Tuesday it could be about anything, I'm planning for a video about the Xbox One versus the One S, and probably some rambles about some console peasants with that video. But today we're just going to keep it budget oriented with a graphics card. I know that sounds weird, but the brand new RX 460 came out not too long ago actually, so I wanted to be nowhere near the first to cover it, but within the week of covering it, so at least this video is still pretty relevant, so it may garner more views. So if you're looking for this card, you're probably enticed by the esport crowd, where it's a very cheap esport title gaming graphics card. It's very good for esport titles such as Dota 2, CSGO, even Overwatch, which is a newer game. Though it doesn't have great graphics, it still can push the can hold its own compared to other graphics cards. So I'm gonna talk about the specifications, and then the frames per second, and then the price. So let's strap your butts and let's just kind of hop right into it. So the RX 460 has 896 stream processors, which is kind of a random number. You know, I feel like they could have rounded it up to 900. I don't make graphics cards. I don't know this technology, but it seems kind of random, especially with the GTX 1000 series going by like resolution, so like the 2560, the 1440 CUDA cores or whatever. It has 14 compute cores, which is, yeah, not as much as the 480, but is pretty decent for the TDP it has and what you're going to get out of it. Its slightly older brother, the 470, has, I think, 18 compute cores, so a little bit of an upgrade there, but not worth the price if you ask me. It has a base clock of 1090 megahertz, and it boosts up to about 1200 megahertz. So if you get a good graphics card that's a good overclocker, you can probably get about an 1150 to 1200 megahertz overclock if you get a good overclocker, which is pretty substantial, even though you're not going to raise the, you can't raise the voltage coming to the graphics card, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. It has two forms of VRAM, or I should say two options of VRAM, a cheaper 2GB variant of VRAM, and a little bit more expensive 4GB amount of VRAM. So if you're playing newer games, I'd recommend the 4GB, even though it is a little bit more expensive. The 2GB though, if you're just playing esport titles, should really be enough for a few years, to be honest. Its max TDP is 75 watts, so you do not need a external 6-pin or 8-pin. It plugs in right to your PCI Express 3.0 slot and is powered by that. Although some, I'm not sure if there's a lot, some custom PCBs do require a 6-pin power just for the fan, so they push the TDP to about 85 watts, so that's really a little bit higher than the regulation of the PCI Express. It has an unknown amount of transistors, but it's somewhere rumored to be about 3.5 billion, and it has a 14 nanometer FinFET manufacturing process. And because of the low TDP, it does not need external power. So, since we're all done with the long-winded specifications, let's get down to the simpler path, I guess, which you want to call it, and let's look at the benchmarks. So, going down the first benchmark is probably a good representation of very new demanding titles is Crysis 3. Yeah, it gained 11 FPS, it struggled its way through on very high at 1440p. I'm not sure if this is using the 2 or 4 gigabyte model. I'm going to assume, and you should assume also, that all these benchmarks are using the 4 gigabyte model. Albeit it doesn't make a big difference, but it does make a difference at higher resolutions. I don't think Crysis 3 is a fair benchmark for this card, especially at 1440p. If you would have downscaled it to 1080p, which most of the gamers are going to use this for, is at 1080p, is going to be about 25 frames per second, if I had to guess, somewhere around that. And just downing it to high, even medium, to get 30 FPS, I think is the minimum playable frame rate. That's obviously always an option. Again, going with this esport titles now is a CSGO, which is a buttery smooth 160 FPS on high at 1080p. So if you did want to play this game at 1440p, I'm guessing you get around 110 frames per second. Still very playable, especially if you couple this with a 120 Hz or 144 Hz. Is it 144 Hz monitor? I'm not sure, but especially for competitive gaming, those monitors do make a decent amount of difference. Going down again to esport games, Dota 2 reaches 102 FPS. I love this graph, but I hate this graph because it shows popular esport titles, but it doesn't show the resolution or the graphics details. I'm going to assume these are all on high or near max at 1080p, obviously using the 4 gigabyte model. Except for GTA, I'm gonna have my accusations a little bit later about that one. Dota 2 gets 102 FPS, very buttery smooth. Again, if you want to reach that 120 Hz or 144 Hz, you can always down those graphical details. So again, very good for the price on that one. Overwatch, which really surprised me, albeit it doesn't have very good graphics, but it did surprise me, reach 109 frames per second. I'm not sure what processor they're using, but Overwatch does rely on its processor quite a bit. It relies on the processor quite a bit. So if you have a cheaper Pentium like a G3258, which is also a very popular budget gaming CPU, I would really think about upgrading to maybe a Core i3 or Core i5 so they can last longer, especially, but you really don't need to if you're just playing the older esport titles. Rocket League hitting a very respectable 96 frames per second. So here we move away from the 120 and 144 Hz necessity for the shooting kind of esport games, and you can really up the details, and maybe you could hit 1440p on the high settings that they have, probably hitting around 50 or 60 FPS if you really wanted to. Again, I don't recommend it. I do like frames per second over kind of the beauty sometimes, but very respectable, very respectable. What I'm surprised about is GTA got 74 frames per second. GTA is a very, very well optimized game, don't get me wrong, but I do think they did downgrade some of these graphics just to get that number. I really don't think it's ultra. I don't think the population density is max, or the population kind of change or whatever, the population randomness, I don't think that's all the way maxed out, because that's just, it eats up VRAM like it's a little baby. So for frames per second, it's dollar per frame. I'm not going to calculate that for one, but it does seem very respectable. If you're going for games like CSGO and Dota 2, it's under $1 per frame if you go for the 2 gigabyte version. If you're going for the 4 gigabyte version, it's probably like $1.25 per frame. Very, very respectable, very, very good for esports, especially if you're running an ultra budget setup. Now the price that it's going to dent you all, not that much actually. It's $99 US for the 2 gigabyte model and $129 US for the 4 gigabyte model. You're gonna see these prices fluctuate, and these are the MSRPs, so you're rarely gonna find graphics cards that hit the MSRP very often. I've seen 4 gigabyte models that are near the MSRP. I've yet to see a 2 gigabyte model that is hit the $99 MSRP, unless AMD is selling their own reference design, if you want to call it that, for $99. the cheapest I could find on Newegg at least, which is very good site. You should shop there. You can get cheaper prices sometimes on Amazon, but Newegg is always better choice because they specialize in this type of stuff. The cheapest 2 GB model I could find was by Powerful for $109.99. No mail-in rebate, no shipping and handling included. The cheapest 4 GB model is $129.99. It's the Gigabyte WindForce, I believe. So I'll link those in the description if you're interested. So that one stays pretty true to the MSRP. Of course, there's other ones that have a higher boost clock and a higher base clock. I've seen some that are like 160 for the WindForce. So wait a little bit until these prices go down, but I really can't blame you if you want to get it. It is still a very good deal at about $135. Anything past that, cut it off. Save your money for an RX 470 or even 480. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the first kind of episode of Tech Tuesday. Not on a Tuesday. I know, I'm screwing with you guys right now. But this was just to kind of get the ball rolling for the new series. So again, this isn't going to be an every Tuesday thing. This is going to be as often as I can. Watch out for the Xbox One versus the One S. I'm just going to talk specifications and if you already own the Xbox One or don't, should you get it or not. So relatively, I'm guessing a short one, but again, this is all objective, or subjective I should say on that one. This one's more specifications. So I'll see you guys later, and I'll see you guys on the next Tech Tuesday.